and welcome to the Astroboy 9 channel on YouTube. I'm Kevin Montague and I'm the owner and user of the channel. And today I'd like to talk to you about a new book that I've written. This book was not written overnight. I lost my health to an event that happened in my life dating back 20 years and all the complications that came from it. And I'm going to show you the book here, the printed form of the book. You can buy this as an ebook. Scholars like me are not rich people, and thanks to the internet, I've been able to spend the last 4 years building up a social network and a base by which this and other products I'm offering can be distributed. These are original products that I'm offering. And this book sells on my website. Just go to kffmenterprises.com, look under the Healthcare tab, and you will see my book in the list of books that are there. And it's titled The Solving of the Chronic Disease Syndrome CDS-PD Process. And this book is about 344 pages, actually. I advertise it as 324 pages because I subtract the prefix pages in the book, which gives something of my history and my educational background and stuff. And this book mostly focuses on the sciences related to chronic disease. You can see there's a lot of writing here, and there's a lot of diagrams and photos to help you out in understanding how chronic disease works. And I'm going to get into this a little bit because I'm going to start sharing stuff with you I can tell you right now you do not know, because you don't know the politics that's going on in the world that supports the whole medical structure of the advanced societies on the face of the earth, with the United States leading the way. Most of the other cultures who are free countries now have used the United States as a role model. And we have a lot of gross errors going on inside of the construct of our system, which is based off the Constitution that founded this country. I'm not a bum off the street. I was a state scholar, California state scholar, back in the 1970s, and qualified to go to any university I wanted to in California. I could have easily gone to UCLA, and it was a toss-up between UCLA and Loyola University for the things that they had to offer. As far as what I wanted to pursue in the arts and sciences. My whole focus has always been on the arts, sciences, and religions of the world. It's quite a volatile mixture because it's the thing they tell you you're not supposed to talk about in, when you're talking in conversation. You're supposed to talk about your children, the weather, whatever, not stuff that really has to do with how the planet runs and how people think and how they make their decisions. But this particular video, I want to focus on the science part of my life. And these areas of focus in my life, the arts, the sciences, the religions of the world, have to do with a lot that's formed me and shaped me in my life. I've had 2 full-death encounters, whether you want to believe that or not. I don't care if you believe, because I know what I experienced. And those had a lot to do with how I wrote this book, because I reveal some incredible things that are necessary to help introduce the reasoning I use to help figure out the chronic disease process, and also to help get man moving more towards the light sciences. We're dealing mostly in chemicals right now on the face of the earth through the periodic chart of elements, but there's another way to look at that chart of elements I learned in death that will take us into the kind of things we only dream about in our science fiction movies and films and television shows. I grew up as a born asthmatic. I had a lot of problems with my health. I had bad eyesight. I had 2 short muscles in my eyes. That's why I wear glasses, which had to be corrected through surgery. And my vision, as far as my physical eyesight is concerned, has never been totally perfect. And I put up with a lot from the kids getting called a lot of names. Back in the 1960s. I was basically handicapped by my asthma and by my eyesight. And these days, kids can tend to get more help in even playing sports, in mastering all of that. But it wasn't that way back 50 years ago when I was a boy growing up. But the reason why I bring that up is because many times I was left indoors because of the smoggy days. So you would often just see me there sitting all alone in the classroom with books, reading them. And I was always reading the advanced books. I got tired of even in the 4th grade, I was reading 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade books because it was simply boring to read the ones that were already being offered to us for our 4th grade studies. I remember one day going through an entire phonics book that was designed for a whole year's worth of study. And I had such an ability to recognize variations on themes, and that's how this book was laid out. That's what made me good at music. I learned fast, too. And I went through it in one lunchtime, and I read and read, and I went flipping the pages going, I get it, I get it, I get it. I went, okay, I'm done. I was a whole year. They had it all spread out as the whole course for the 2 school semesters, and I was done in one afternoon. And no one really saw this about me. Maybe my parents couldn't see it. They couldn't see I was a prodigy when I was born. When I spoke in full sentences. When I started to speak, I didn't speak one word at a time. And I did that sitting in my high chair at the dinner table one day. And it totally amazed my parents when I started to do that. So, so I've never stopped studying. Life keeps throwing me into battle after battle throughout the years, including with my health. And as a result, I keep studying our sciences. I always seem to be that little boy sitting in that room all alone, constantly reading, constantly studying, constantly fighting against death too, trying to master everything. And I realize from the 2 death encounters I had, it's part of my destiny. And I'm almost done with the whole thing. And when I'm done, God will take me and get me out of here. But before I go, before He does take me, I'm leaving something behind as a legacy, which is going to help the sick and dying and our Western medical doctors in a very big way. So I'm a pretty brainy guy. I was called all kinds of names growing up, from geek to nerd to whatever, and I hated all the names. And I don't think you should pick on someone just because they're very smart. We need smart people in the world. And it's always the dumb ones picking on the smart ones, and why would you want the dumb ones running your world? That doesn't make any sense. But you know, we're at a time now where I'm like a dying breed. Men of science like me are being phased out by a world that really has lost its way in so many ways, and the politics and the money have a lot to do with that. So I kind of look at it this way. I kind of figure that the Lord of the universe wanted me to be a doctor, wanted me to be a professor. But He didn't want me to go the way man has it set up. He wanted me to go a different way so that I would bring something new into the world. And I think that's pretty good, because I would get bored doing it the conventional way. I get bored easily, and I love the challenges that life has given me. I just could have done without the pain and suffering I went through to get where I am right now in my understanding. So I would have liked to have gone back to school and gotten my doctorate work done. I think in my own mind I would have certainly pursued the healing arts. I'd probably have a medical degree right now and probably hate it, because I don't like where Western medicine has gone, and the whole thing needs to be completely revamped and changed as far as I'm concerned. So, but I did go through 20 years of intense studying while being very, very sick and in a lot of pain and suffering. While my doctors told me to go home and die, what I went through was like going through medical school 5 times over, because I was constantly studying day and night. My cousin, my late cousin who passed away 4 years ago, was my caregiver through the whole thing, helping me to give me the time and the support to find a way to master it all. I really didn't think it was going to take 20 years. But I had so many complications, over 36 major complications going on in my body. And my doctors gave up. Western doctors told me to go home and die. My PPO, primary care physician, who was a Blue Shield physician, told me that there was nothing more Western medicine could do for me and sent me home to die with all the complications. And I remember walking out of his office scared. I went to my car and bowed my head in prayer and asked God for guidance. I'd already had one death encounter. I'd met Him in death, and I couldn't understand why He had sent me back and put me through this. But it's turning out to be something good in the end. Now, I want to show you the book again, at least the cover, so you can see this. Don't be scared by the pages that are in here. If I did this two-sided, this is only printed one-sided for the Copyright Office, but if I print this two-sided, it'd be half the, half the thickness it is right now. For those of you who think you have to read so much, think of it that way. It's two-sided, but every word will captivate. I offer the a $47 version of the book, which was the draft that preceded this one. And then if you like that, I give you a coupon code so you can upgrade from the $47 version to the full version of the book, which I charge $97 for. And I charge the $97 because I know you guys are going to want to talk to me, and you got to pay for my time. I can't work for free. If enough of you will buy the book, certainly within the next 4 to 6 months, then I can do this full time. Right now I need a few thousand copies of the book to sell. I need affiliate markers to get on board to help me to sell it. My ideal goal is about 15 to 30,000 copies I need to sell to help me recoup what I lost through all of this in the last 20 years and keep me going, because there's a lot more I'd like to write to help you guys understand what it is you're failing to see in all of this, especially those of you who are struggling with so many different diseases. This is taken from the list I wrote down. You can find this on my website. Again, go to kffmenterprises.com, look under the healthcare tab, and you'll find my book, The Solving of the Chronic Disease Syndrome CDS-PD Process, is what I've titled it. And read the page. I get your feet wet pretty good with this whole thing as to what the whole thing is about. And I also give a list of symptoms, complications I went through when my doctors finally gave up and said, that's it, we can't fight all of this, our drugs don't work, and they just sent me home to die. But for those of you who are struggling with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Crohn's disease, diabetes, heart disease, even you have a massive thrush on your tongue, you're breaking out in eczema, you've got brain fog symptoms all the time, you haven't got a clue to what's going on, I can guarantee you this book that I wrote is going to show you what's going on inside of your body that's creating all of that. And here's some of the, let's give you start reading this list a little bit just to give you an idea of what I was fighting. I was struggling. I have this in alphabetical order. Adrenal deficiency. I had ringworm around the opening of my anal area, and I had 3 gastroenterologists that couldn't even diagnose their way out of a paper bag, and they were primary care physicians, and that went right past them. I had knee surgery done on my left knee because it tore one day, surprisingly, and no one knew what caused that. I had breaking down of the tissues, skin tissue on my scalp. My blood was anemic and chained together. There were burns appearing on my face. It looked like I was being hit with radioactivity with the way my face was breaking out, and also on my skin. I had chronic reactive arthritis, costochondritis, where I had constant spasms in the ribcage area, congested lymph nodes in the neck area, cranial seizures during my sleep, daily debilitating chronic fatigue, that's CFS. And boy, I mean fatigue, where I felt like I was standing outside of my body, carrying my body around. I felt dead from all of it. I could get a good night's sleep at night, and I still was tired. No matter what I ate, I still was tired. Always my eyes half sleepy, ready to keel over. And you can learn what causes all of this in my new book. Just buy it and read it. I also offer a 30-day money-back guarantee to entice you to read it. And so far, no one's wanted to return it. So that should tell you that it's worth its salt. Give it a chance. I had elevated liver enzyme levels with my SGOT, SGPT, GGOT exams. It never would resolve. I had like a form of encephalitis, but not so much encephalitis, but I had heavy pain and pressure, unbelievable pain and pressure around my cranial area, going into the blood vessels. I lived with that for a few years. And how we cleared that up is going to be the subject of my next book, which is going to be titled My Doctor Told Me. And the real phrase is, when my doctor told me there's nothing more Western medicine can do for you. That's what my physician told me. I just shortened it down. But I'm going to reveal the problems I had and how they were dealt with. I'm not going to give you the answers in this video, otherwise you won't read the book. And I need your support. So, but I want to get you to think about some stuff that's going on in our world system. Is going to really amaze you. To what you're walking into when you walk into your doctor's office, and what that really is all about when you're coming to someone like a Western physician or any other healthcare practitioner for help. And you got to understand, I was bedridden through all of this. I was bedridden for close to 2 decades in all of this. And I get around now more. I have to use a walking cane because I have some remaining myofascial tumors in the small of my back that haven't been broken down yet. all the way. I've broken them down pretty good using 3 different alternatives, and I'll talk about that in my next book as to what I'm using. So understand, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. If I do that, I give away the barn, and I'm not going to give away the barn. But I'm going to give you an idea of what I've been through, and that I'm doing something about it, and it needs to be done, and I'll get into why it needs to be done. Anyway, that's just a little bit of the list, and it goes on and on here. You know, I literally was having heart attacks in my sleep, and I knew it too. I was fighting to try to wake up from the trouble my heart was going through, and I had calcium crystallization in my liver, which had to be cleared out. Western medicine could do nothing about that. I had hemorrhoids forming on my rear end. I had to go through major surgery to get that done. It's not something I'd like to go through again. So anyway, you can go to my website. There's the whole list is here. You can see there's the list. It's on 2 pages. And you can read about that on my website to get some idea of what I went through. It's a nightmarish story. All of this was caused by contaminated sausage I bought from a local Vons supermarket near my home one day, and I ate it at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was getting a reaction from it, a bad one. I was breaking out in all these ulcerated circles, and went to sleep finally. I had called, my mother was alive back then. She told me to take a bunch of Benadryl, and I went to sleep. By that evening, my hands were about 3 times their size. My left eye had shut down. It was totally swollen. My feet were swollen. I was really in trouble. I got my neighbor to drive me to our local, one of our local hospitals. They couldn't clear it up in the emergency room. They admitted me into ICU. I fought for my life. They thought that they released me to a ward, and they thought they had cleared me up, sent me home. I threw out the rest of the sausage because I thought it was over with, and to my great surprise, within 2 weeks I started going to hellish complications. And from that point on, I was in and out of emergency rooms, in and out of the hospital. Finally, they just gave up on me after 3 years, like I said, and sent me home to die. I was lying on my living room floor. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I was all alone, and I knew I was about to die. And I started to slip into unconsciousness, and suddenly I heard a voice. If you think miracles don't happen, think again. It was a female voice, too, a very sweet voice, saying, "Rise up," because I was getting ready to go to a health store, a local herbal store, and this voice said, "Rise up, your healing is waiting for you." And suddenly another miracle happened. It's like someone took a volume knob and lowered the voices of everyone in the store except this one man that was talking to this one woman. And this very tall man with long black hair. And I was standing over by where the tinctures were, looking for the one I wanted, and I could hear them talking. I was listening because 2 weeks earlier I was in another hospital. I've been to all the hospitals around here, and because of the spasms in my rib cage area. I had a doctor finally diagnose that as coastal chondritis. I asked him what causes that, and he says parasites normally cause it. But he says if you're going to a county hospital anywhere in LA, we're not set up for that. We just deal with bacteria, viruses, surgery, whatever. He said, yeah, that's some more exotic to our way of thinking. I said, well, at least you diagnosed it. So when he mentioned the word parasites, I'm now in this store with this guy saying, you know, parasites, so I made the connection. He was very sympathetic. He could see that I wasn't crazy in the head. I was in contact. You know, that's how doctors treat you. You know, they think you're nuts or crazy because they're all knowing. They've got it worked out, and that's bull. And a lot of stuff gets past them. We wouldn't have all the lawsuits we have going on right now in the system if they were so perfect in all of their methodologies and their approaches and stuff. So you got to take charge of this on your own when you're trying to regain your health. The doctors can help from all the different practices when you integrate them all together, but in the end you got to get yourself well. You got to find the path, and I'm going to help you do that because this is an amazing book that I'm offering to all of you. And that first live cell blood exam was incredibly revealing. It's the first time I've ever seen the technique used. And while my chem panel blood tests, serum blood panels, showed normal, the live cell showed I was dying. I've been trying to encourage Dr. Santee to write a book. He finally did it, and he released it this year, and I'm helping to promote it. And he decided to title this Prostate Relief Now, because we've got an aging baby boomer generation. But this is for men of all ages, actually, because you can run into prostate problems as early as 20 and 30 years of age. You don't have to wait till you're my age. You know, I'm nearly 60 years old. You have to wait till you're my age to have to deal with the issue from an aging prostate. But what makes his book beautiful is not only does he tell you something about his life and prostate issues he's had as a naturopath, but he goes into techniques that even the women can use, you know, as far as cleansing the body is concerned and redefining the biological terrain of the body. So I want to tell the gals, if you're going to buy this for your men, you know, because they need help and they're too proud or whatever to get this, read it yourself. There's stuff in here you gals will enjoy, and I know the women love this stuff, you know, because that's the other side of humanity. This is where the sexes get involved. The women are really the good side, you know. They keep the men straight, keep them on the right path. And you gals need to read this because you need a break too. And Dr. Santee is one of the most compassionate, brilliant naturopaths I have ever met in my life. And Rick has nothing to prove. Neither do I. He had to fight for his life for 4 years to save it one day. He had eaten bad meat too one day from a local Trader Joe's, and it took him 4 years to clear his body. It took me longer because my complications were even greater than his, and still I managed to master them. And this doesn't need to happen. You shouldn't have to go through 20 years to get yourself well. I prefer 10 minutes, you know. But the more knowledge you have and the more correct knowledge you have, the faster and speedier you'll get through the whole thing, and that's what I'm here to do. That's my destiny in the end, before my time is used up here on the earth and it's time to go. We're going to be talking about some stuff I think you're going to enjoy. Now, right now I've come to find out through a lot of work that I'm the only man on the face of the earth that possesses the knowledge that's in my current book, The Solving of the Chronic Disease Syndrome. Now, there are two other brilliant men on the earth right now, Dr. Tullio Simoncini in Italy, an oncologist who wrote a book called Cancer is a Fungus, which was published in 2005. There's another fellow named Dr. Ali Majid who works out of New York, another brilliant man. I've got a hold of all of his stuff, went through it, and he's on the right path with this whole thing, but I'm much further down the road in the discovery process than he is, and he needs my book too. The system's very disconnected with the sciences. That's why more and more symposiums and stuff are needed, but the money's not there. We're not being supported like we should as men and women who study the arts and sciences on the face of the earth. If more would be put into it, and not so much just covering up masking symptoms through drugs, or then when you fall apart enough they do surgery, we would have a lot more answers by this time, and you guys would be doing a lot better too. But you don't support us. You want the support to be there. So it's taken out of your taxes and whatever donations you give to foundations. So men and women like me have to go to those places to get paid so we can make a living. And as a result, progress is very slow because the politics gets in. I have no license to lose in this. I'm a private researcher who has an incredible story to tell and incredible knowledge to reveal. And if you want to partake in it, it's being offered at a very moderate price next to the amount of money it took me and a number of my relatives to get me through this, to help save my life while I did what I'm good at, and that's the research part of it. I want you to buy the book. Even if you just buy the $47 version of the book, know that I'll upgrade you to the $97. I'll give you a coupon and credit you the $47 so you don't have to spend it twice. And I want to get you into the 344-page version of the book because it's got a lot to offer, and I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee to encourage you to do that. Let's talk about Western medicine. Let's start with Dr. Paul Ehrlich. This goes back to the late 1800s, and Ehrlich was a German Jewish physician. And he was doing pioneer work working with dyes, and what he was doing was very revolutionary at the time. One of the major killers back in that time period was syphilis, which we don't even think twice about. We just give an antibiotic for it and destroy the thing, and no one has to die of syphilis anymore or gonorrhea. You use penicillin. You know, you can get 2 good shots of penicillin in your buttocks, and that'll take care of gonorrhea and syphilis for the most part. But the main thing is, we pretty well have overcome those bacterial type of infestations, even as sexually transmitted diseases. But there was a time when the knowledge wasn't known. And Ehrlich was working with dyes, and he one day isolated the syphilis bacteria. So he isolated it to the amazement of the scientific community of that time. So he created a formula called Formula 606, commonly called arsphenamine, or salvarsan was the name it was given. And he saved a lot of lives with it. And even people suffering from blindness, from syphilis, were had their eyesight restored through this approach. Now, of course, you know, later on came the sulfonamide drugs, sulfur-based drugs, and, you know, penicillin was the first one by Alexander Fleming. And past these sulfur drugs, now we have genetically engineered drugs that go after a microbe and tear it down at the DNA and RNA level. Paul Ehrlich had this vision of creating what he called magic bullets to destroy pathogens in the body once he had made this discovery. And that's where the whole drug thing started, really. It started with Dr. Paul Ehrlich, and it went further to where it is today. Antibiotics are good at going after bacteria and protozoa in the body. The whole idea of pills being the sole remedy for everything proved through time to be a very obtuse way of thinking. Because while pills can be helpful in a body that's already healthy and might get hit with something from the environment in the form of pathogenic invasion, meaning, you know, a bacteria gets into you, or a protozoa or virus or whatever, it tends to be very limiting when it comes to actually dealing with chronic sickness. But when it turns into something else, something so incredible, which is at the heart of my book, that it becomes chronic disease, then these pills are absolutely useless. There is a process in the body I have named the CDS-PD process. It's a very interesting process to have gotten to study. I just wish my body hadn't been the first guinea pig to be able to study it. But in that process, the body literally pollutes itself and adulterates itself, and it's doing it deliberately because it thinks it's going to die. And this process is meant to be a way of saving the life force of the body as the body is being transformed into the microbial plant life kingdom at the cellular level. And if you didn't understand that, buy the book and you will understand it, to what's going on, especially people who have cancer. You'll understand what cancer really is, because it's not a disease. It's something else. In this adulteration of the body, as the body becomes more and more adulterated by this process that I've identified, you'll find that drugs become totally useless. They become diluted in this process, and the same with antibiotics. And this is what's really at the heart of why our drugs are not working. It's not the immune system or anything, because the immune system doesn't even bat an eye at this amazing process, because it's natural to the body. It is not a disorder at all. It is something that it has to happen when the body's getting ready to die, and so the life force of the body is preserved. Now, let's talk about the FDA and the AMA. Now, the American Medical Association was founded in 1847 because it was an attempt to try to organize disorganized medicine. You know, a lot of doctors, even back in the 1920s, worked out of their homes. They couldn't afford anything else. So half of their home was hospital. They had rooms for beds for patients and stuff, and the other half was where they lived, their normal life. And they did all their research and study out of it. So Western medicine was very disorganized back in 1847. And finally, in 1938, Theodore Roosevelt chartered the Federal Drug Administration. And it was an attempt to try to, again, bring more organization to a very disorganized and very disconnected service that we were trying to build, not only in our nation, but that the world needed. So everything's money, 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 money today, which is sad. I have to even ask for money in order to do what I'm doing, or I can't do it. But I didn't start this. I didn't create the way that it is. I'm simply trying to go with the flow of it and survive it all, while also trying to bring answers into the world that I know all of you need and have been praying for. The FDA and the AMA were created as a way of creating some kind of format by which the medical system could operate under, that would also encourage proper research in truly gaining the answers empirically to what was behind sickness and death, especially premature sickness and death. We all die eventually. My knowledge isn't going to make you live forever, but you don't have to suffer and struggle with chronic disease, I've learned, having gone through it myself. But the systems back then favored drugs and surgery because through World War I and World War II, that was the focus. That's what was being used and was known at the time, and so it went the direction that it did. It did not go holistically, and if it had, then my new book and the knowledge it reveals scientifically, the knowledge that's there would have been discovered a heck of a lot sooner. But unfortunately, it did not go that way because drugs are literally a renewable source of income for doctors. It keeps the doctors and nurses going, it pays them, but it only supplies a form of control on symptoms and complications. It does not clear the patient of the symptoms and complications. And to do that, you have to change the biological terrain, and I talk about that in my book. So medicine was like a three-lane highway. It always has been. It's devoted either to trauma, physical damage that happens to your body, congenital issues, which is physical damage that happens to you while you're in the womb due to errors on the part of the parents, and sometimes through genetic distribution. But the point is, only synthetic medicine was favored. But think of it, you don't go, your body is not made out of synthetic medicines, is it? When you eat at the dinner table at night, you don't, grab a bowl of, drugs and a big whopping bowl of sutures, and syringes and pour it on your table and eat those, do you? Your body's not made of that. Your body is made of the food that you eat, the air that you breathe, the environment that you walk through, and it is subject to what those forces do to you in anything that you come in contact with through all of that. And everything's cause and effect. And doctors, Western doctors always act like, well, we don't know what's doing here, take this drug, it'll help make you feel better. Well, that's ridiculous science. They don't know, but they have a cure, a remedy. No, they don't. They have a way of controlling it by sequestering or suppressing the symptoms, but they haven't got a solution because they don't work that way. And the politics of Western medicine is designed to make sure they never know, because if they were to cure all of you, they'd be out of business. Come on, guys and gals, use your reasoning. If they got you well, then they don't have a job. If everyone's well, then they got to go sell earth shoes or something, So, but that's the system. And if you're going to get well, you got to get away from it. Western medicine is good for the diagnostic equipment they have, and if you need to control the symptoms for a while, that's great, use their drugs, but don't live on them. Get to the answers yourself. If you'll really apply yourself and start to learn on your own, there are those of us who will help guide you with the books that we've written to help you do what each of us have learned and managed to do. The truth is, your body is perfect in every way. If you believe in a God, and you believe that God is perfect, then how can your body have chronic disease? I mean, think about it. If your body's perfect, if the programming's perfect, why are you sick all the time? There has to be something behind that you did that was wrong, that you can fix if you were taught correctly, so that you can get well and get on with your life. And you should support the ones that have the knowledge. I don't care if it's a Korean doctor who's an herbalist working in a very tiny room in a apothecary. I went to a few of those along the way, and these guys were great to help me clear my body. They greatly assisted, but I had to use a lot of other things too. And even if you're just a humble Western medical doctor with an office, or you have to share your office with many other doctors, then great, you got a roof over your head, you've got equipment that you all guys can share. We can come to you and we can get assistance, valuable assistance, but it should be designed to get us well and not keep our symptoms managed, until the day we die, so that you're constantly profiteering and making money. I'm against all of that. That's why I wrote the new book that I did. There's a need for it. And I have a lot more writing to do. I have a lot more to tell you. And if you'll support me with the money and the purchases and the sales, I'll be able to do all of that. So the old vision was wrong coming out of World War I and World War II when the FDA was created. This is why Western medicine has not progressed past drugs or surgery in the past 80 years since the FDA was first formed. Understand this. Western medicine took on the position that they were going to manage your symptoms through drugs, but they had not considered changing the biological terrain. Now, your body is a living water system. You're mostly made of water. All you have to do is cremate a body, and all you got is a few pounds of minerals, and the rest of it was water-based. People underestimate what water is in the creation. It literally is a material, like wood, like metals are. It's a construct. To ignore the construct of water and what it is foolishness, and our doctors tend to do that. They're trained differently. If you go to medical school, you find this out to the way they think. If they were to, instead of focusing on the current condition your body is in, and try to give you drugs to manage the symptoms, because they swore an oath to do no harm, but they actually do more harm than good, actually, in the end. And all they want to do is manage your symptoms. Then they escape the vision of changing your biological terrain. That's like two pathways that were introduced even back in 1938, and they only went down one pathway, and that covered synthetic medicine. But they never went down the pathway of the holistic side, where the body can heal itself if it's properly assisted. And changing the biological terrain, you can correlate that to like what you would do with your computer when it gets corrupted enough by malware, viruses, worms. Kind of a good correlation to the body, because the body can get worms in it. And you need to clean all of that out. But there's more to it than just cleaning those things out of the body, because there's another process that gets started in the body that cannot be shut down except through a very amazing way. And you have to read about that in my book if you want to understand how all of that works. So with Western medicine, they don't really do anything to clear up the corruption in the body. Just look at my website, look under Health Cures, look at some of the photos I show you, to how a blood panel looks, which looks like hell, even though the panel is saying everything is fine. And then look at, through the live cell examples I've got in there, look at how blood looks fully whole and healed when you compare it to what a doctor does looking only at a Chem 24 panel test, and then look at it after the blood is finally cleared out and the body is transformed through the changing of the biological terrain. It's the difference of night and day, and I talk a little bit about that on my website, because I want you to trust me in what I'm doing, because I went through this myself. It's not anecdotal, because I also introduce other documented case studies. That's why it took so long to write the book. Once I could see how this thing works, I needed to have the proof. So I started offering my time for free to collect the documented case studies that I have. I've only used a few in the book, but it's enough to really get you thinking and to get our Western doctors thinking about what they're not seeing. And in those documented case studies, I show how this thing is repeatable, not only in how it's presented when it's first diagnosed, but how it's cleared up along the way as the biological terrain is changed. A lot of doctors are scared to death to change the biological terrain. They're so afraid of disrupting something that's going to kill the patient. That's why no research has been done with any of this. So it takes someone like me who hasn't got a license he has to fear to lose, that God apparently has to send through, which is how I look at it, to walk it all through and write about it with the background that I have to be able to present the knowledge. Once you know what's in this book, and you grasp onto this, you're going to see me introduce some amazing technologies that now become logical. I mean, even the camcorder I'm talking to right now, to talk to you, was fiction 50 years ago. All of this stuff 50 years ago was science fiction, and now it's reality, because someone like me had the vision, not only had the vision, but saw and broke down the details to how it can be introduced into the world. And once you do that, you're on your way to making it reality. And that's what my book is dedicated to do. We're going to talk about Circular 34 and the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration. Now, what is Circular 34 and who is the FDA? Well, the Federal Drug Administration, like I said, was created back in 1938 under the presidential authority of Theodore Roosevelt. He thought it was needed at that time to help organize medicine into a more cohesive service to the American people. But we have errors in our system. We have quite a few. And they need to be corrected if we're to really rise up and make a difference in the world. We once were a very great leader in America, and we are not that way anymore. Not in my eyes. Like I said, after 60 years of living, I watched a lot of changes, and it has changed. Now, the FDA was created because something had to be done to regulate the synthetic drugs that man was creating. Nothing was barred against natural approaches. Certainly as vitamins developed, minerals developed in sales, coming into the marketplace, herbal techniques had been around since the times of the Bible, dating back thousands of years. So that was not going to be interfered with. If it was natural, you could take it. If it was synthetic, then it had to come under the regulations of the Federal Drug Administration in America, because most of the developments were being done here, but there were also developments being done in Germany and other countries that were being integrated here. But we kind of took a leadership position in all of that as far as the regulation was concerned. Not that the other countries didn't have their own laws, they did. When I was a boy growing up in the 1960s, there was only 1 billion people on the face of the earth. That was the world population under the current census of the time. Now it's up to 8 billion and expected to double within the next 10 to 15 years to 16 billion, and then double again in less time than that. That's going to introduce a lot of problems to how do we take care of the food that humanity needs, and how do we also take care of the medical needs of the people. We're going to need faster and better ways, and the current system just isn't cutting it. It's got to change. Now here's where the FDA made a terrible mistake in my mind, and they actually are in violation of the constitutional laws of the United States. I'm going to share that with you. This is where Circular 34 comes into play. They came up with a statement, and the statement reads as this: only a drug can diagnose, treat, and cure a disease. And through that statement, and you see it everywhere, you know, whenever you're going to buy something, it says this has not been examined by the FDA or the AMA, states only a drug can diagnose, treat, or cure a disease. You need to check with your doctor, blah, 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 goes the whole disclaimer. And you can no longer take care of yourself. You got to do all this stuff, which is bull. You can take care of yourself. You have the right to educate yourself. In the United States, we still have the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, the freedom of right to speak, but they're trying to silence you more and more because they want to control you. Don't let that happen to you. There's a lot of political stuff I keep track of that's going on in our societies. Stuff that's where Congress is being petitioned all the time. Congress, they're trying more and more to take control of all the natural stuff and treat it like it's a drug, because they're aware it's a multi-billion-dollar industry on the face of the earth. It's even more than that. And they missed out on the money because what they did was they tightened themselves, and because of their obtuse thinking. And this comes from greed starting in the beginning, where they said only a drug can diagnose, treat, and cure a disease. They came up with that statement because they wanted to control drugs. And that was going to be their way of keeping the money coming in, a renewable source of income. But the problem with that statement, that only a drug can diagnose, treat, or cure a disease, is you kind of leave the doctor out of it. I always thought a doctor was the only one that could diagnose, treat, and cure a disease. I mean, I don't go into a doctor's office and sit there and talk to a pill sitting there, you know, having a conversation, and that's how this statement reads. It's a ludicrous statement. First of all, a doctor has the right to diagnose you. You have the right to diagnose you. If you get a scrape on your arm or your leg or something, you can treat that on your own. You don't have to go running to your doctor. Now they want you to go to a doctor for everything. I don't do that. I hope you don't do that either. You got a brain to think with. There are books you can buy. There are friends you probably know that can also help you. Go to your doctor when you really have to. You know, that's fine. But there's a lot you can do on your own. Our great-grandparents knew that, and it's gotten away from it, and it needs to change back to a more common sense approach to medicine. No, not all doctors are scientists, in my view. I'm a scientist. I'm a researcher. Whether I have my formal doctorate work done or not has not stopped me from doing all the work I'm doing through my life, because my passion is for the arts and sciences. And when you have the passion, you're going to discover truths. I don't think God in his heaven, for those of you who believe in God, I certainly do. I certainly know there's a creator behind all of this. You know, doesn't sit there on his throne saying, okay, you're a medical doctor, you have X number of degrees, you meet all this criteria, I'm going to reveal my truths to you. No, I don't think God thinks that way at all. I think God gives to those who are listening. It's that simple. Those who will listen to the Lord and Creator of the universe and who respect him and will do his will give the answers too. And that kind of fumbles the whole society with all of its categorizations and its degrees and its this and that. But if that wasn't the case, then the system would literally destroy itself for its obtuse thinking. So there has to be free agency. And California used to be that way. We were that way back in the 1960s, favoring the arts and sciences. Now the laws have become so tight that they literally are discouraging men and women like me from rising up who do have the answers. We should be supported. We should be given Nobel Prizes for the discoveries we make. And it was done that way up to the 1950s, and it changed and became the mess, the political mess that it is right now. The problem with the FDA is they act like they own this phrase. And if you go on AdWords and you try to use any medical term as a keyword, you're bounced out. You have to have a medical license. You have to punch into AdWords in order to use medical terms. Do you know that's against the law in the United States? In Circular 34 of Title 17, that covers copyright law in the United States, which is part of the whole Constitution, all of the laws of the Constitution, it states in clear English that it is against the law to copyright a phrase or a word. The punishment is incredible. I mean, you can be fined up to $500,000, $250,000 to $500,000 if you do that, and you can be put into jail for a minimum of 10 to 25 years for doing that. And do you know the people of the FDA have been breaking that law since the day they were formed in 1938? That means under the Constitution of the United States right now, the government should go in there, shut them down, and throw every last one of them into jail and fine them heavily for having broken that law, and they owe back payment for the last 80 years for having broken that law. I am waiting for a law firm to get this message and really go after them, because their entire foundation needs to be redefined. They're crazy with the way they have gone with this whole thing, and it's killing people, and it's killing a lot of people, not just a few. And you guys are running into the trap all the time, and that's why I'm creating these videos. I want you guys to wake up and realize what's going on, not only in America, but because the rest of the world focuses on us as an example, it's spreading throughout the world, and it's a gross error that needs to be changed. Now, when you look at Kevin Trudeau's book, Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, which came out a number of years ago, Trudeau was crucified for having used the word cure in his book, and they trumped up every charge they could to condemn this man. He sold 6 million, I think eventually 10 million copies of his book, which is wonderful in the publishing world. You know, you're lucky if you sell 5 to 10,000, 15,000 copies of a book. You know, I read into all of that to see what he was doing with the charges. They were ridiculous charges that he was being hit with. And he's not the only one hit with it, because doctors who reveal the knowledge that I know, naturopaths who practice this, they're crucified too. Everything is done to shut down the truth, because they want the money to keep going. They want the drugs to keep going. It's a renewable source of income. They don't want you to get well, because if they do, that dries up everything as far as medicine is concerned. So I loved Trudeau's book. I read it. He goes through a lot of the politics in the system, and he goes into some of the natural cures that can get your body clear. They can help change your biological terrain. What Trudeau didn't have was this. This is all the science. I spend a little bit on the politics. I do the opposite of what he did. He was a lot of politics with a little bit on the natural cures. On the natural cures, the natural approaches, the insight that makes it all work. And I'd spend a little time with the politics. I didn't want to go too much into the politics because he already covered it. And what I really wanted to do was do what he didn't do, and that's to bring all the science to you guys. You know, you can see this is a lot of writing. This book has been through hundreds of rewrites because I was working in the trenches with the sick and the dying, helping them to get well. And I was getting people well because I was getting myself well. And I wasn't looking at my body and saying I'm going to settle for drugs or surgery, even though I had that done to me. And it damaged my body along the way, which is why I still have to use a walking cane to get around because of the damages that were done. I started to approach the biological terrain, starting with Dr. Rick Santee's help. And then I went past Dr. Santee's knowledge, and I started walking into what he called virgin territory. Thoughts and ideas and concepts no one had ever thought of that would connect all the healing arts together, and that's what I'm doing. My role is to show you integrative medicine, and when looked in the right light, how it all comes together, and you need all of it to help get you back on your feet. None of this happens overnight, I want you to know. It does take time. Don't expect an instant remedy or cure, because what it takes to change the biological terrain takes time and effort and work on your part. But you can't do it unless you have the proper knowledge and information to guide you to do it. And this book is the first attempt that brings together a lot of people, a lot of research. It really connects the dots for you to what this thing is all about, so you can start to make the correct decisions, the right decisions to get yourself well. So my book is, in my eyes, I see it as a bridge to something new we need to walk into on this planet. It is not a final answer yet, but it sure gets you there as far as knowing how to look at all the alternatives and how to use them properly than to be guessing at it. And a lot of you guess. In fact, most of you do. I did that too, but I was also documenting to death everything that was going on in my body, and slowly but surely I started to isolate what doesn't work, isolate what does work, and then I tell you why it works in my work. So drugs are nice for suppressing symptoms. They really don't cure anything except for antibiotics help to attenuate or lessen pathogenic load in the body, meaning bacteria, protozoas, when they get going at an alarming rate in your body and can kill you. It's not really the microbes that kill you, it's the toxic load that they release in the body that poisons the cells and causes the cells to shut down from functioning properly, and poisons everything in your body so that not even your hormones can transmit properly through all the liquids of your body, creating an incredible adulterous mess. The whole thing either leads into cancer, into blockage in the arteries causing a heart attack or stroke, or the acid load of the body becomes so great it turns into spontaneous human combustion because the hydrogen load becomes to the point where you're ignitable. You can literally light you on fire. So I literally even explained how spontaneous human combustion works, and that was never explained through the decades when I was doing all my studies in all of this. So remember this, your body is perfect in its programming. God designed it to be that way. The science that I am working with, yes, it deals with the empirical things the senses can deal with, but I also bring in stuff I saw in death that redefines the periodic chart of elements and helps you to understand where we're blowing it in our sciences and the next doorway we need to walk through that will help change everything on the face of the earth, especially for the medical sciences. Now, we have so blown it in the last 50 years in our medical sciences. We have lawsuits galore popping up in the last 20 to 30 years. It first started with asbestos poisoning. I remember those commercials from 20 years ago on TV. But if you look at the free airwave channels, and what you see going on with these commercials is amazing to me. We have literally failed as a generation in what we had to offer in the way of synthetic medicine. Synthetic medicine is failing gloriously. You see Risperdal, which causes gynecomastia, where young boys are growing breasts. They're being treated for ADD, attention deficit disorder, and they're given this drug to calm them down, and it's causing a side effect in their bodies. Back in our day when I was a boy, they didn't call it ADD, they just called you a hyperactive kid. And hyperactive kids were extremely brilliant. They get bored easily. You shouldn't drug them to slow them down to go at the pace the class is going. You should put them in special classes so they can learn at the pace they want to learn. That's my generation from 50 years ago. Look at
ago.
Xarelto. This is a blood thinning drug that came out. Earlier this year there were a whole bunch of drugs that were categorized into a major lawsuit that are blood thinners. Warfarin was the first one that came out. And now they're blaming the drugs for causing hemorrhaging in the body. Well, I want to tell the drug companies who are watching this, it's not your drugs that are doing it. Let me tell you what's going on. What's going on is the process that's in my book, where the body is self-creating its own parasite load. It's tearing down the blood vessels and other tissues of the body. You guys are sending stuff in like Lipitor in there, which is causing a lessening of the production of actually, what you're doing is you're lowering the use of bad cholesterol. The bad cholesterol is needed to patch all of that up. And your drug is interfering with that when the parasites are at work. And when you do that and then add a blood thinner as the third item into the whole thing, you cause hemorrhaging to take place in the body and you're killing your patients. It's a three-step process. It's not hard to understand when you know as much as I do. What you have to do is get rid of the parasite load in the body. And then if you need the blood thinner to help thin the blood out, to help manage the cholesterol production, that's fine. But if you don't clear the parasite load, and then at the same time you're causing the bad cholesterol, which is needed to patch all of that up, to be lessened in the body through drugs like Lipitor, and then you add in Xarelto to thin the blood, you're going to kill your patient. So really it's you doctors that are killing your patients. The other things that are coming out, you see implants that are used for hip implants. The body rejects those after a while. It's tearing down the metals that are being used for it, and so the people are having to go through more surgeries. You look at the meshes that are used in women and men, and those are giving out. All this synthetic stuff we thought was great. The body rejects after a while. The body will only accept what's natural, what it creates. And our doctors need to move in line with that, because the body will literally heal itself from just about anything. It has the programming to do it if it's properly assisted. Trauma and congenital are two different other areas. They need surgical intervention. You need them all. You really need them all, but they need to be put in their proper perspective. They can't just be all surgery and all drugs in the end. And that's what Western doctors do, and that's where they're failing. So I'm going to end my little presentation with this. I want to encourage you to buy my book. I hope I gave you a lot of food for thought. It's addressed in this book, too, and a lot more. And again, I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. I want to encourage you to buy it. If after 30 days you just feel, you know, it just was knowledge you just couldn't use, then, you know, tell me you want a refund and I'll give you the refund. But don't play around with me either. You know, don't just take the book and steal it and then say you want a refund, because that's cruel. That's evil, quite frankly. That's very evil. You know, if you really found the book really helped you and gave you knowledge you didn't have before, keep the book. If you've got a medical book at home, keep it next to your medical book. This will help you through the rest of your life. This isn't just for today. This is the future of mankind, and I'm trying to help introduce that into the world through the work that I'm doing. So to finish this, the name of the book is The Solving of the Chronic Disease Syndrome, CDS-PD Process. You can buy it as an ebook. If you want hard copies, I know there's many of you that say, I want a hard copy. I can't afford to print hard copies and keep them in storage and hope they're going to sell. That's literally financial suicide to small publishers. But thanks to the internet, I can use publishing on demand, and you can get your book immediately. Just pay into the system. Make sure I'll get paid. The book will be released to you. Then print it. Use some paper and you know, toner on your computer and print this book in hard copy form. If you got a place nearby that does the binding, I have a local Kinko's nearby. They're national, and I just went in there for $5 and had them put a spine on this, and you put a clear cover on the back and put a vinyl cover on the back on the back side. I mean, the clear cover on the front, and that's it. You're done. Now you've got a hard copy. You can sit down with it. You can read it. Make notes in the sides if you want. Whatever you want to do with it. Lie back in bed if you want to and read it. So thank you for joining me on the Astroboy 9 channel. I hope you found this very informative, that you'll support me and buy my new book, that you'll also buy Dr. Santee's book, prostate relief now. We're going into the holiday season as I create this, so enjoy your Thanksgiving, your Christmas. If you're Jewish, enjoy Hanukkah. Please don't drive and text. I've a few times almost got hit by some of you out there on the road that are busy on your car phones or texting while you're driving. You don't realize what you're doing to other drivers when you do that. I don't bring a computer with me into my car. I like to think when I'm in the car, and I like to concentrate on the road. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, stay well, stay healthy, and have a good holiday season.